Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got for you a tank review on the AMX 1357. Now, you might be going, well Max, this thing has been out for absolutely ages, and yes I know it has, and same with the Carnarvon Action 10 that I did relatively recently, but I'm trying to flesh out like my tank reviews a bit and trying to, because on my tank list I have a space for the tank reviews on there. So I'm basically trying to just add a load on and just try and fill some gaps in for some tanks that I feel are missing. And this is one of those tanks that's kind of released every now and again, especially coming over the next period. I think it'll probably be in the advent calendar at some point. This is either going to age really well or really badly within the next 20 days or so. Or it'll be in the black market or something like that. So it's just a good review to have up online. So the way this tank review is going to work, we've got the gameplay just here, and then I'll do a quick comparison, let you know how to set the vehicle up, and whether I think this vehicle is worth it or not. So first things first, gameplay, we are on Redshire. We've got South Spawn, which is the best spawn for light tanks, and one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best light tank maps in the game. If you can come down into this little riverbed here in the light tanks, quite a lot of teams from the north now do try and counter it because it's such a strong position. You saw me go here, down here at the start of the game. You can spot any heavies crossing, and if you have anybody camping up here, they can shoot into it. You can see me here pretty much countering this IS-3. They can't push over the mid. LT-432 in return tried to counter me, but I've moved into a position. Just made sure I get out of there because I don't want to face a one-on-one brawl with the LT-432. However, I now think to myself, well, I can get out, and I see that the Progetto is moving in as well. I've loaded premium. You will know I am a big old hashtag gold noob in this thing. I take a lot more gold than I do standard, and that's because this gun it's a 57mm gun, if you didn't get that from AMX 1357, and the standard penetration really isn't that high at tier 7. It kind of sucks a bit, I won't lie. Standard pen, 143. Premium pen, 195. I'd definitely take the premium. Obviously, this thing being an AMX, it's nice and quick. It's a really quick, mobile, nice, agile tank. Like I said, 57mm gun. It is an 8-shell autoloader, doing 90 damage per shot. So you've got about 700 damage clip potential. The nice thing about this tank is, and probably the thing it's best known for, is the fact that it's only got 1 second between shells. This is the Om Nom Nom tank, pop 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 tank, however you want to call it. It's a really fun tank to play. View range obviously pretty decent. We'll go through all of the stats properly when we come to compare the tank. But it's such a fun tank. You can just maneuver around as you see here. Tier 7 heavy tanks, no hope. You can just maneuver around and just continue to keep unloading into them. And then when you're done, just bail out and away we go. You can also play this thing like a generic light tank, like very much passive spotter. Sit it in a bush, stuff like that. And that's how I do play it sometimes, especially when you get into those worst matchups. This matchup wasn't too bad, only tier 8s, bearing in mind that this is tier 7. Or, on the other hand, if you get this thing in with tier 5s, which you can do, you use this thing as more of a medium tank, as more of a damage dealer, because you can just absolutely take people to bits. You gotta think tier 5 tanks around about, well, anywhere between like 500 to 900 HP, depending on what tank it is. You can kill a lot of like tier 5 tank destroyers within one clip, and they just can't do anything about it. Like, if they're not facing you and you start just piling shells into them, they're not going to be able to do anything. See here, I go over at the Spearpanzer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Finish him off, and he can't do anything about it. He fired 1 shell into me, and that was all he was going to get, and then I get away. The time between clips isn't actually that bad. I believe it's around about, I think about 17 seconds. Don't quote me on that. Again, we'll have a look when it actually comes to the gameplay. And, oh, this is always a nice moment. I did actually make a small misplay here. I loaded AP for the Spearpanzer and then forgot to reload APCR, which means I only actually loaded 6 shells into this clip. And I, in the end, don't actually need them, so it wasn't the world's worst misplay. But we did get a nice amount of spotting on that That arty. That's what this thing loves. Into the pig pen with 8 shells, and just you can rip through 2 artillery nice and easily, and usually put 1 or 2 into a third as well, obviously depending on what tier they are. And that was all she wrote for that game. That was a very, very, very quick game, just under 5 minutes, which was really nice. And I'd like to think we had a big part to play in that, because we did a load of spotting, we also did a load of damage as well, and you can kind of play this tank either way. Like I say, in your lower tier matchups, when you're against tier 5s, tier 6s, or even tier 7s, I would say play it more of a damage dealer. Against tier 8s, you can kind of play it as a hybrid. Use your camo, use your view range to spot, but then when the opportunity arises, then go in. And against tier 9s, I would definitely say play this thing a lot more passively, because as a tier 8 light, you really don't have a lot of HP, and your penetration really is then starting to struggle. Only 189, that's probably starting to struggle against quite a lot of tier 9 medium tanks. And obviously it's not like it's a high caliber either, so you don't get overmatch on anything. I think actually this tank has the smallest, the lowest caliber gun at any tank tier 7 and up, if I'm not mistaken. I think the only things that are similar around this tier are tier 6, you've got the T50-2 and the MT25, and I think that's about it until you get that right down to tier 5 and stuff. But yeah, that was all she wrote for this game. A pretty nice game. 2,368 damage, 2,924 assistance, all spotting, 4 kills as well, which is pretty nice. And this was an ace tanker. I will show you the post-game stats at the end of the video if you're interested. But without further ado, we'll jump into Tanks GG just so you can have a look at the stats and a comparison compared to some other vehicles. So, starting off, guys, we've got the AMX 1357 on the left. This also applies for the AMX 1357 GF, by the way. If that thing comes on sale, they are both identical tanks. It doesn't matter either. The AMX 1375, the tech tree equivalent, and also the T71DA, the collector's vehicle that used to be the T71 that was in the tech tree when it was an autoloader, but now it's been taken out and is a collector's vehicle, like I just said. So, first things first, this thing, like I said, has a 57mm gun, lowest caliber on pretty much anything at any tier around it. Only really getting down into really low tiers where that becomes a thing. The other two, 75 and 76, respectively. But that doesn't really matter that much, because 75 isn't really going to overmatch much that 57 can't. The only real thing is if any plates are 20mm thick, that's when you really do struggle. And obviously 25mm thick plates in terms of 76mm guns. Shell velocity on the standard rounds actually really, really nice, 1,141. And that's really nice as well, given that they are AP. When you load the APCR, it goes up to 1,400, which is very nice. I will note that the T71 does get the APCR as standard, which is why it is much higher. Ammo capacity is actually something that is a big issue on this tank. Same with the tech tree tank. You can only do 5,000 damage, and that's if you pen every single shell, which, not gonna lie, you're quite unlikely to. And that is the main reason that I take so much gold in this tank. It's just purely because when you get into those worst matchups, you can't afford more than 1 or 2 clips of AP, because you just then run out of shells so quickly, and it can cost you at the end of games. So yeah, 56 shells, really not that great. I'd quite like this thing to have maybe 80, so that then you could take 10 clips. That'd be a lot nicer. Maybe 5 clips of each would be fine, but it is what it is. Like I said, 5, that's not a 5 max, that's an 8. 8 shells per magazine, 1 shell in 1 second inch clip, which does mean the reload time is unload time, sorry, is pretty much the same as the 1375 and a little bit quicker than the T71DA. However, it does have quite a nice clip potential of 720. Not quite as good as the DA, but still really nice, respectable clip. And like I said, especially when you're up tiered, it really does hurt. Penetration in and around abouts, but still, like I said, definitely load the APCR, because when you use like the T71, you've got 210mm of heat pen, so you don't even get close to that with 189mm of APCR. 90 average damage, so on a single shot basis, this tank is obviously really poor. Like, you don't want to be trading 1-for-1 with anything, even other light tanks. You want to be putting at least 2 or 3 in for every time they fire. Reload time of the entire clip is only 16 seconds, which is really nice. I do like all 3 of these tanks in terms of you can unload, run away, and reload, but it's not like a really long, like 30-second reload or something where you have to sit out the fight for so long. It's still a fairly flexible reload, which is quite nice. DPM is the best on this tank of the three tanks in this comparison. Excuse me. On to gun handling, 2.3 seconds aim time. You're never really stopping and aiming. You want to be using this thing kind of as a drive-by shooter. It's quite nice. The dispersions are the best of this comparison on this tank, which is nice. 0.37 dispersion, which is the best in this comparison, but still, I wouldn't recommend trying to snipe with that. It's really not going to work. But like I say, you want to be doing like drive-bys rather than sitting back and sniping. You can do it from time to time, but I really wouldn't recommend it. 6 degrees gun depression is an issue. That's really not that good, but on the oscillating turrets of these tanks, gun depression is never a great thing. Forward speed of 61 kilometers an hour. Same hull, I think, pretty much as the 1375. Reverse speed of 23, very nice. All in and around about same class. Horsepower of 380, which, yeah, with 14 tons, 25.85. It's good enough. It's not insane, but it's definitely good enough. Obviously, with only weighing 14 tons as well, you do not want to get rammed in this thing. You will lose a lot of HP. Terrain resistances are pretty good, which means you go 61 pretty much everywhere. Turret traverse 45, tank traverse 48. Again, quick enough. It's a light tank. You're not going to struggle. It's not that bad of a turn-in circle. You do start to see it a bit on the 1375 or 42. This thing being at 48, especially after you've put things such as clutch braking, stuff like that on, it is more than adequate. Hull armor-wise, having 50mm at the front of the hull is actually relatively important because it does mean that the only guns that can overmatch the front of the hull of this tank are 151mm caliber guns and higher. Because when you're talking about this kind of armor, like the DA's armor is literally overmatchable by pretty much everything. Well, ironically, other than probably the tanks in this comparison. But having 50mm of frontal armor does give that at least a plate that is not overmatchable. Same with the turret armor, only 40, which means any 121mm guns and higher, which obviously there are a lot more 121 to 150s than there are 151mm plus. But it's nice. Obviously, don't use the armor. The armor is crap in general, but I'm just saying having those little plates that are not overmatchable means every now and again you do get those miracle bounces. Health is actually half decent, better than the other two tanks in this comparison at 890. And you've got a nice view range at tier 7 of 390 meters as well, and pretty good camo because at the end of the day you are an AMX 13 chassis. Shell cost as well, kind of irrelevant because, like I say, I fire a hell of a lot of gold in this thing. But a shell cost of 85 if you do choose fire standard. I probably wouldn't recommend this thing as a money-making tank. You miss an awful lot of shots, and it's really not worth it for a money-making tank. If you want it as... this thing is just so much better. This is a fun tank. A tank to make you smile. You've had a couple of bad games. You just get in this thing. Just drive round heavy tanks, fire 8 shots into them, set them on fire. It's great fun. Like, you don't buy this tank to be a money-maker. If you want a money-making tank, play something else. Buy another premium tank. Play something else. However, it is a fairly good crew trainer for the AMX 13 line, and it's also good to get used to the playstyle as well. But anyway, without further ado, we'll jump into the garage, and I'll just take you through the equipment, my recommended equipment setup, and what field modifications I would recommend on the tank as well. So, nice and quickly, guys. The crew, basically, you're going to want to use your AMX 13 crew. The EBR isn't going to fit into it properly. Obviously, if you want an EBR crew trainer, the best thing is the EBR 75. But the AMX 13 105, AMX 1390 crew all fit into this thing really nice. I would recommend getting Deadeye on this tank because obviously you're firing so many shells. You do get quite a lot of fires and things like that because every time your shell hits like the fuel tanks or whatever, and it rolls the percentage chance. If you're only firing one, it only does it once. If you're firing it 8 times, well, you never know. Equipment-wise, I haven't actually really changed this equipment since Equipment 2.0. This is quite a traditional setup, vert stabs, vents, and optics. I would definitely recommend the optics because I'm at 484 meters view range, obviously with a good crew. and I've put that in the scouting slot. You can, if you want to, use this thing as a passive scout, so maybe go with binos if you didn't want to use coated optics, but I like to say I use it quite often as an active scout as well. Low noise exhaust, never a bad thing. Always good to use on your light tanks. So that could be an option. Turbo as well, always an option to boost your specific power, your horsepower per ton. And also rotation mechanism if you really wanted to as well. They would kind of be my picks. I probably will swap out eventually. I'll swap out vents for maybe turbo or low noise. You can't use Commander's vision system at this lower tier, so you can't fit that. Otherwise, I was going to say that's good pick as well. But I would say probably the best thing is vert stabs, and then turbo or low noise exhaust, and then optics or binos, depending on your playstyle. In terms of field mods, I haven't actually got any field mods on this tank because I'm a scrub. But I would probably go... I always think engine power is better than outright top speed, so I would go engine power. I'd probably go aiming circle size on this thing because it is an auto-loader, so you have to run away for the auto-loading anyway, for the clip reload. So you may as well, that when you're loaded, make every shot count, so probably aiming size. And then I would definitely go for lightweight support protection to give you more reverse speed rather than stunning, because at the end of the day, you probably shouldn't be stunned anyway. You shouldn't be still. You get a bonus to hold traverse speed for boosting field mods up as well. And yeah, that is pretty much everything about the AMX 1357. Like I said before, guys, I wouldn't recommend this thing for a moneymaker. If you want a money-making tank, there are many other better premium tanks to buy. However, if you want this thing as a fun tank, this is definitely up there with one of the most fun tanks you can buy as a premium tank. So 100% would recommend this thing. Obviously, if it's available for credits, like in the black market, definitely. This thing is a great fun tank. But as I said, do not buy it as a money maker. It is not a great money making tank. Other than that, I hope you have found this video useful, guys. If you have, please make sure you give the video a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel and you've liked what you've seen, then make sure you subscribe, and make sure as well you've got notifications turned on so you know when I upload a video. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, guys. Remember, as long as this comes out in time, remember that my charity live stream is on Sunday. So please make sure you drop by and say hello. And on that, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.